I feel sick.
Claudia, this is the easiest one out of anyone.
No, it's not. This is the hardest one out of anyone.
And I walk away, and only in that moment when I let go, I knew it was the right thing.
But I don't feel like you ever brought that home and scarred us where we didn't want to start our own businesses because we didn't experience any like trauma from all of the stuff you were going through.
He said, Maria, I cannot tell you how proud I am of you.
Welcome to Bishness As Usual, the podcast about the people behind the careers. I'm your host, Claudia Bish, and each week I'll be diving into real conversations that go beyond the job titles. Expect honest stories, a few business gems along the way, and a reminder that behind every highlight reel, there's a whole lot more story. Now, let's get down to business. Today's guest has built multiple businesses, owns multiple properties, raised a family, and casually started a brand new and very profitable career in her 50s. On reflection, I am gobsmacked at the success she's had because honestly, she operates off one brain cell, but she's always made it work. I said from day one that I didn't want this podcast to only highlight one type of success or one type of industry. Hairdressers are so often dumbed down like it's a backup job or something people fall into, but what this woman built from that career is something most people could only dream of, and today we're unpacking it. If you think I'm even remotely impressive, wait till you hear from the original. Today's guest is my mum.
Hi, I'm Maria Bish, and this is Bishness As Usual.
Come on.
No, I literally
Babe, you've got an
can't.
hour and 10 minutes left. We can wrap this up, so let's go.
Okay,
Well, I'll
right.
interview you then.
Okay, interview me.
Why are you so scared?
Don't speak like that.
What?
Do not speak
All right.
like that.
Okay then. Why are you scared then? Why are you nervous?
Because the thing is, in a natural environment, I wouldn't be saying to my mum, let's roll it back to when you grew up in England.
What's wrong with that?
Maria,
Like
ask the
in
question.
any natural situation, I wouldn't sit here and ask you, like I know about your childhood.
Yeah,
So I feel like, but we need to touch on that now to get into everything else.
well, that's fine.
Okay, so tell me about growing up in the UK. Because
Right, okay. You want the boring bit? I was born in Brighton to Italian parents.
Italian wasn't your first language.
Was my first language.
No, sorry, was your English wasn't your first
Yeah,
language.
wasn't. Yeah, that's fine. We're doing all right.
Okay.
So I didn't speak any English till I went to nursery. Well, started to speak the odd word in English.
So how old?
I was 3 when I went to nursery.
Oh, okay. I tell everyone you didn't understand a word of English till you were like 6, and it sounds so much better.
But I didn't speak good English at all because my parents only spoke Italian at home. So when I went home, we spoke Italian. But somehow I managed, and then eventually when I went on to junior school, I would answer my parents in English, but they always spoke Italian.
But do you have any memory of going to school and not understanding anything everyone was saying to you?
Oh, I have that right through my life, to be honest. You accuse me of that all the time, you and Luca.
Okay,
I
understand is the wrong word then.
Yeah, I don't think, I never felt I struggled in the way that, not really. I felt probably a bit different because where I went to school, there was, I think, another Greek girl and that was it. Everyone else was English. So I did feel my upbringing was very different to probably most people I went to school with.
Okay, so tell me more about school.
At school, actually, I was one of those that stare out the window. I actually didn't really, I was a bit of a rebel, to be honest.
Did you not study?
Not really.
It's obvious.
I used to, because then you'd sign it, register in the morning. At the end of the day, they would take the register again, but throughout the day, they never
What a
did.
hypocrite. If me and Luca
So-
ever had done that as kids.
Yeah, exactly. But I can tell you that now, and I would not be at school nearly all day. I'd miss. This was more, not junior school, this was second senior school.
Okay, so after senior school, you then go to college
I go to college,
to study.
hairdressing.
Okay.
Didn't really want to be a hairdresser, but it was just an easy option. And when I got there, I didn't realise actually it wasn't that easy because you had to, at the time, then you had to study art and pass art. You had to pass wig making. I mean, there was lots of other elements you had to pass that had nothing to do with really hairdressing, art. And I remember going to the art teacher at the time who was Italian, and I said, I'm going to fail this course because I am rubbish at art. And he said to me, everybody can do art, everybody can do it. There's people that are natural, but I can teach you it. And in fact, I was blown, honestly, my art was amazing. He gave me that confidence, and he would teach me, even drawing a face, how the basic oval and all the elements. I did do something really naughty at college because I couldn't be bothered with the wig making, and I mean, it was different elements of wig making, like little patches. I took last year's students board and put that through as mine.
Did the teacher know that?
No, of course she didn't. I would have been failed.
But then she would have seen the last year's board.
She wouldn't have remembered because they were all in a cupboard, put away from,
So you literally just took it out and used it as your own?
I did.
Well, then you were an unqualified hairdresser, you are now.
What? Because I didn't do wig making.
Oh, you took the wig?
Well, no, it's a board, and there was different elements of how to make a wig, little patches of.
Yeah. Okay, so you go to college, study hair and beauty.
Yeah. Well, beauty basics like manicure, the basic size of beauty, but I did barbering and hairdressing.
Okay, so you leave college with your fraud degree after copying the board, and then go to work for someone else.
Yeah, because you have to finish your apprenticeship. You're not really qualified as soon as you come out.
Okay, so talk to me about that.
Another 2 years in a salon, which I went and did, and I worked. It was called James Kimber in Brighton. It was one of the top hair salons in Brighton at the time.
Yeah.
And I learned the trade, and then I went to another salon, and I was told that I had to give up because I picked up asthma. Because at the time, smoking was allowed in salons, and when I'm telling you, you could barely see the customer in the mirror because it was smoke everywhere, and people smoking cigarettes and hairspray, and I picked up bronchitis and I couldn't get rid of it, and they said you can't be in that environment. So what I did, I was about age 19, I decided to open my own business, and I think I was the first salon in Brighton to be a non-smoker. It was just unheard of back then. Smoking was allowed everywhere, and it was part of, and I was the first sort of salon, and people like, what, no smoking? I go, no. And then I was able to continue with that career.
Okay, so you just skimmed over the fact you bought a salon at 19.
So we walk into the bank. I walk into the bank with Nonno, and Nonno, my dad, your granddad, says, my daughter wants to buy a salon. Can we borrow X amount of money?
Yeah.
They went, yeah, because my dad knew the bank manager. And
so crazy. That's how easy it was.
That's how easy it was. But he had to be a guarantor. If you got a guarantor, it was easy enough to borrow the money.
Yeah.
Then I looked in areas where I felt...
So how much did the bank at that time offer? To open a whole shop, how much did that cost?
To open the shop? I don't really want to say.
Oh, why?
Because I don't. That's
why?
Private.
How much was it? Like £3,000 or something crazy?
God, I'm not that old, Claudia. Was it not more than that? Yeah.
No, how much was it?
I think it was about £35,000.
Okay, so why won't you say that? You've said you borrowed it, so it's not like...
Okay, it was about £35,000 I bought the shop.
Okay, and you owned the property? Like, it was a whole property?
I owned the property.
Yeah.
And I looked at areas where it needed a modern, upbeat salon. And where I opened had already, I think there was 4 other salons in that street, but they weren't the sort of salons. I wanted to bring something different.
So you weren't scared about the competition?
No. In fact, I think anywhere, not just own a hairdresser, I've had hardware shop, and obviously now I'm in the antique and vintage business. You want to be in areas where there are other shops have those things, so then the customer base is already coming to that area. But that area, there were very much, the other salons were catering for the older clientele. OAP, we used to call it OAPs.
Still what it's called.
Yeah, well, even though I had a lot of elderly clients come in, because they were my bread and butter money, they were consistent. They used to come in every week, as the youngsters would come in every time they needed a haircut or a hair colour.
Yeah.
So they were my bread and butter money, and they literally would come in the same time, same day, every week.
So you get this £35,000 from the bank?
I get it, yeah.
Open the salon, but you can also at this point use that £35,000 to do up the salon?
No.
Oh, okay.
That was to buy the salon. My dad, he did the salon up for me because he could do that work. He did it himself. He actually did the decorating.
So you didn't need necessarily like a massive amount of money at that time to build the salon inside?
He did it with him and a couple of friends. They built me, basically did up a salon for me. And it's all well and good that you get your parent to be a guarantor, you get help. But it's what you do with it, because you can easily lose it.
Yeah.
You can either build from what you've been helped with, or you choose to think everything just comes to you easily, and that's not the case.
Day one of opening the salon.
Yeah.
Because I actually don't.
Yeah, I worked on my own for about three months, and it got busier than I expected it to be quite quickly. So then I brought in a friend of mine. But before I did that, I remember I was trying to do everything. I was shampooing, I was styling, cleaning the salon. I was working 7 days a week, and I was just trying to do everything on my own. And I remember I was highlighting a client's hair. And at that time we used these caps, you put the caps on and you sort of
the rubber caps. I remember them.
Right. And I remember leaving her at the sink and not forgetting, but over timing. And I went to shampoo it, and the hair started.
I know this story. Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, it's because I was just trying to do too much.
Yeah.
And anyway, it all worked out fine. She didn't even know that happened.
She didn't know her hair fell out?
No, because I ended up talking her into a short haircut, and it was wonderful. It looked wonderful, so it's fine.
Okay.
But then I brought somebody in to help me, another stylist.
So that was the moment you were like, okay, I need help.
Yeah, I can't be doing
Yeah.
this on my own, you know. And so I brought somebody in to help me.
So you have one member of staff for how long?
A few months. And then we get, within a few weeks, we get a shampooist.
Okay.
And then we just build up from there.
And then you get up to 10 staff.
There's about, when I get the barber shop, yes, yeah, and then the beauty salon.
Yeah, so then, okay, so talk me through that. You then scale up to 10 staff and decide, let me open a beauty salon as an addition to the hairdressers.
Yes, because we had an upstairs to the shop, so I thought, let's utilise it and open something else. And
Yeah.
there's no beauty salon in the area, so I started buying the equipment rather than borrow money to buy it. I was buying a piece of equipment every week and then keeping it to one side, and once I had the whole equipment to open the salon, I opened it within a few months.
Which is crazy, because I feel like most people listening would think any 19-year-old would want to spend the profits that are coming into the business, but you were saving to put towards the beauty.
Yeah.
Did you not want to splurge the profits that were coming in? You were reinvesting business, but how did you know to do that at that age?
I wanted to buy my next shop. I was already thinking I want another shop, and it's only because I came from a home where I'd seen my mum and dad work really hard. They came over to this country with nothing. I mean, literally with their bag in their hand, and that was it. The clothes on their back, a few in the bag, and that was it.
Yeah, so did you have a business plan, or you just were winging it?
I didn't have a business plan, I was winging it.
So then you've had this shop like a year. Nonna and Nonna then buy the property next door to the shop. And
after about 3-4 years.
Oh, I thought it was sooner than that.
No. The shop became available. Maybe it was after a couple of years. It wasn't like months. And that came available, and I mentioned it to mum and dad.
Yeah.
You know, the shop's come available, why don't you take it? And they put an offer in and it got accepted, so they bought the shop next door, and they gutted it. Nonna gutted it, and just till the bare walls, 4 walls, even to the foundation of the, you know, and he turned it into this lucrative cafe where literally they were queuing up to get, honestly.
No, I know.
Queuing up.
I remember as a kid that shop, and they had like the pantry out the back, and that was like the coolest place you could go and like hide in there.
Yeah, it was the most wonderful, you know, they'd come round with plates of food for lunch for me.
Yeah. They're next door to you. You then buy a second property, that comes up on that exact same road.
The people that were in this other shop wanted to retire, and I said, when you decide to retire, you know, would you offer the shop to me?
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
Buy this second shop.
Yeah.
So it's the third on this same road of the families.
Yeah.
What do you then do with that shop?
I turned it into a barber's, because I thought there was another barber shop down the road, and again wanted to bring a more modern barber shop to the area. So
Yeah.
I opened another barber shop, which obviously I employ people to work in there.
At this point, did you convert the upstairs of that into a flat, or did you just leave that empty?
Not at that point, yeah. Later on,
Yeah.
because obviously I had to go through planning, and it had to be a self-contained flat.
Yeah.
So when I could afford to convert it, that was the next step, and then I converted that.
And the money you used to convert that was through the profits of the salons. So this is now 3 buildings on that road. You're one of 3 sisters. Another property on that road comes up for sale. She then purchases that.
Yeah, we let her know about that, so they purchased that.
So it was basically real life monopoly going on in this one street in Brighton, and you all still are owning properties on that road. Did you know, I suppose at that point, that you're building like a mini empire, or you're just going along with it?
There was never, I'm going to buy this street, it just opportunities as they came along, you know, I would, you know, grab them, you know, but it wasn't like I wanted to buy the street and no, not really.
So around this same time of buying that second property for you, Dad then comes along.
Yeah, Dad was one of my customers.
Yeah, I love this story so much.
Do you?
Yeah, go on.
Well, he was one of my customers, but
he wasn't really a customer. He just came because he wanted
to. He was a mutual friend of ours, you know, and so he was in a circle of friends.
No, but explain how you saw a psychic a while ago.
Oh, God.
Not a while ago, a while before Dad.
I got with Dad, yeah. I went to see a clairvoyant because I was with this boyfriend for about 6 years, and he was from North Africa, and basically if I didn't marry him he had to leave the country. So when I thought, I don't know if I want to marry him, so I went to talk to people in marriages or partnerships that were really happy, I said, did you know whether you wanted to stay with it? And they went, yes, never questioned it. Then I went to talk to people that were divorced or separated, and I asked them the same question, and they said, no, I was unsure, but I went ahead. And I even went to see my priest. And he said, well, you got to do what's right.
Well, how's the priest going to know?
I don't know. I just wanted to... I wanted to ask everybody. I wanted someone to give me the answer.
You knew it was a no if you're having to ask these questions anyway.
I wasn't, sure. So I went to a clairvoyant, and she said to me that I can see a sea, a blue sea. And she said, on that one part of the blue sea, there's flowers floating on the water. And I'm seeing you standing there, and he's fair-skinned, blondish hair.
Blonde?
Well, dark blonde. He's not dark.
Maybe the man hasn't come along then.
No.
Dad is the most brunette man.
No, fairer. And
oh my God, do you have eyes? Dad has dark brown hair.
He's not got dark brown hair. He's got dark blonde. I was a hairdresser, Claudia. You're talking to someone who did hair.
Oh, okay, so it has to be the specific shade of brunette. He's got brown hair.
Right. And he's hugging you, and you're going to be happy with this person. And he's something to do with the sea. He works with boats. Sea. He's something to do with the sea. And I thought, what? And then she said, and then there's another very murky sea, and you're standing with this man who's got black hair, and basically saying that's the person on the blue sea with the flowers, and that one isn't. So I came away and I told this, I'm not going to say his name because he still stalks me actually.
So he's messaged me before.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
Saying hi. No, what? It was like an essay, I can't remember.
This is like 35 years ago. So anyway.
You're such a catch.
Yeah, so basically I end it. And I take him to the airport.
Was it the psychic that made you?
Yeah, it did
reinforce the decision.
I thought, how many things have I got? I've got this is not right for me now. So I take him to the airport, and as he's going through departures, he turns around and waves. I wave, and I walk away. And only in that moment, when I let go, I knew it was the right thing. So anyway, Dad's my customer at the salon, a mutual friend as well. Hangs around with the same circle of friends. In fact, he used to fancy Auntie Lucia.
So he used to fancy your sister, just for context of anyone listening.
Exactly, right. Well, I'm cutting his hair, and basically, he'd phone and say, can I book him? And I go, yeah, 4:00, but do not be late. If you're late, I'm not doing it. Fine. So he turns up to the salon.
So was he using you doing the hair as his way into your sister?
Yeah, probably, yeah. So he was hanging around more with Auntie Lucia and that group.
Yeah.
So I'm cutting his hair this particular day, and I said, I really want to go to the Far East, but none of my friends can really afford it.
Even though you just left someone from the Far East, and that would have been your free ticket there.
That was like in the February, and this was in the September.
Okay.
Right, so I did have a few months to grieve.
To grieve?
Well, get over it. But anyway, so he says, I'd like to do something like that. Why don't we go together? And I went, yeah, all right, because I thought...
That's very spontaneous of you.
So we did that. Everything's booked separately, separate rooms in hotels, all that stuff. And we go off travelling to the Far East for a few weeks.
Because I actually want to know the rest of this story, but I think for anyone listening, for the business element, I would freak out if I'm leaving the company for 3 weeks. And obviously yours is more, I know you've got staff in the shop, but it's not necessarily like a online service as such or whatever. Did you not go into absolute overdrive leaving the salon for 3 weeks?
No, because by this point, I don't know if I've already mentioned, but for the first 3 years, I never took a day off and never had a holiday. So by this point, I'd built up, where I felt comfortable to leave the shop.
Okay, fine.
So, I felt comfortable to leave the hands of the staff, yeah.
Okay, good. So go back to this trip. Tell me about the trip.
We get on, flying first to Singapore, and on the plane I say to Michael, I turn around, he's sitting next to me, I said, look, on this holiday, if you want to do your own thing, you can do your own thing, and if I want to do my own thing, I'll do my own thing. He went, all right then. We go away, and within a couple of days of being away, I thought, quite nice. I quite like him. And he thought the same about me, because he said, I thought you were such a snob when I used to come and have my hair done. He said, you were always like, if you're late, I'm not doing your hair. Boom. So anyway, we're on holiday. We get together, and it is in Bali, and the sun's setting on the beach. It's early hours of the morning. It's beautiful. We literally, he thinks it was I came in first for the kiss, and I think it was him, but we just came together, and that was it. We thought it was a holiday romance. So we said, let's not say anything to anybody when we go home, because this could be a holiday romance.
And because you're in the same friendship group?
No, not really. Actually, I forgot to mention, before we went away, I said to one of my friends, I don't think I should go away. Why have I booked to go away with him? I'm not sure if I should do it. And they went, well, you're friends, just go away. It's not a big deal, Yeah. And I went, all right. Yeah, so we came back to the UK, and a few months went by, and, it was all let out the come out that we were together.
So how old are you?
I am 23.
So Dad already has his business at this point. You have your own business. Yeah. Dad has his own property. You're both quite independent people. Was there any healthy competition at the beginning of that?
Well, I was very much, because going back in time, that sort of time, it was always like then, when I was younger, usually it was the men that would pay for the meals out, and I was very much, no, I treat him to things to go, you know, I didn't want that. I wanted that equality, and I don't know if it's because I didn't want to give someone all my power of them paying for everything. I wanted that I could, you know, contribute, and I could do and I think Dad quite liked that, not in a tight way that he didn't want to pay, but he liked that I was ambitious. At that point, we both would driving nice cars. We got to the stage where, you know, for our age, you know, as hard as we were working and probably not doing what other people our age were doing, clubbing it all night, and even though we did club all night some nights, but not to the extent of our friends were enjoying their lives. But they weren't shopping at Harvey Nicks and places like that and go to those nights, buy nice things. I liked nice things, so I had to work hard to...
Yeah, because Dad always likes to say that he was the first person in Brighton to own a convertible.
Yeah, he was, until I crashed it.
So Dad had worked really hard for the first convertible car in Brighton.
We come back from our honeymoon, he had this beautiful car. Yeah, I crashed it basically.
And wrote it off?
Yes, I did. But I wasn't hurt.
No, you weren't, but Dad didn't care about the car.
No,
he says that now.
Because what happened, again, without having the mobile, at the time when I had the accident, and the car was completely, it was not good, but I luckily an ambulance was called and everything, but I was all right, and a couple of men happened to witness it, and they said, is there anyone we can go and get for you? And at the time I was not far from Nonna and Nonna's cafe. I said, do you mind driving to my parents' cafe and letting them, because at the time I don't think I had mobiles then. They went up and said, your daughter's been in an accident. Nonna just dropped everything, phoned Dad up at his work. Maria's been in an accident, it's bad, you know how dramatic Italian, you know, oh my God, you know, not knowing that actually I was all right. So Dad left and he drove all the way along that coast road. And usually when there's accidents along that road, they are fatal. And he thought it was along there because all Nonna told him was it was along the seafront by the marina up that way. Yeah. So he drove all the way along. He was panicking. He thought he'd lost me, basically. And then he got to the under the bridge to go to Asda, and that's where the car skid. It went into spin under the bridge and head on into the wall. And that was it. So he got there, and the people that stopped, the two men, were picking up pieces from the road and going, oh God, you better keep that, that's probably quite expensive. But the car was written off. Dad was, maybe later on he might have been a bit off, but at the time he was relieved I was alive.
By the time you had me, you were running 3 successful shops. Dad was running his business. What did business look like with motherhood then coming into the picture? Because you didn't have maternity leave.
I had no maternity leave. I went back to work after you were 3 weeks old. I went back to work, not full time, and then you went to a nanny because all our relatives were working, so they couldn't look after you. You know, I did the best I could. Everything, I cooked all your food and that went with you. And when you were little, there was always an element of guilt, feeling bad that I was working. But I know for a fact that when I was with you, I was very present as a mum. You know, I wouldn't prioritise cleaning the house, even though, you know, but obviously I paid people to do that. You know, I would prioritise spending time with you. But obviously when I had Luca, I had more time off.
Of course.
No, not at all.
Obviously.
You know, I just couldn't. At the time when I had you, it was building, and it was hard for me to do. And looking back as a mother, I'd suggest to anyone who's having a baby, you take that year off, 100%. But at the time, I think I was a workaholic as well, you know, simple as that.
So you've had Luca. We're now like growing up, whatever age. Obviously you're hands-on with work. What, I suppose, morals and stuff did you want to instill with us from early on? Like, how did you make sure that we weren't absolute brats?
You didn't get everything you wanted at all. We didn't agree with that, you know, that you had whatever you wanted, you know, it was...
But did you ever sit down with Dad and like have that conversation?
Not really. I think we were on the same wavelength. We sort of supported each other in our decisions, you know, and Dad was working much longer hours than I was, so I was spending more time with you and Luca, you know, even though Dad was always picking you up from school, you didn't miss any. That's the thing with having your own business. As hard as it is and challenging, you can pick and choose when you take the time off. So I was able to be there when it was your school plays, your sports days, you know, I was able to work round that, you know, school holidays, have a bit of time with you know, it was hard, but at the same time, there was the perks that we were able to attend and be there for the things that we need to do, you know, at school plays and sports day. And there was always something going on at school, so I always made sure that time was booked out. And never, even Dad and I never missed, did we? We never missed
never.
any of your, you know, so as hard as we worked, we were, you know, doing our best to be there as well.
I don't really recall you ever not being there though.
No, exactly.
Like, I knew you were both really busy people, but I never felt like we were like neglected kids.
Do you remember when I actually sold the lease to my shop? You know that story.
I feel like I vaguely remember this, but recap it. But that was a really bad business move, wasn't it?
It wasn't a bad business move, but I dealt with it not very well. I sort of was a bit secretive about doing it with the customers. I didn't tell them till I did it, sold the business, which I'll touch on that later on when I did sell it eventually. When I did finish it, I did it very differently. But that first time, I sold the lease. And at the time, through an agency, all through the proper channels, got references and everything. And what I didn't realise is I sold the lease to somebody who 6 months prior had tried to have someone killed.
But he bought
he bought this shop for her. It didn't work out for her. I think they split up, and then he got it in, I think, September.
So he didn't buy the property, he bought the lease.
The lease. So come Christmas, I get a Christmas card from him. I open it, and in the Christmas card it says, "Happy Christmas, I'm not paying you any more rent." And I was
Happy
like,
Christmas.
What?
He just put it through the door? Because by this point you have mobiles.
Yeah, it was a Christmas card. I go to him, I said, "What's going on?" He said, well, he accused me, because it was a full repair on lease, and he accused me of saying that I would repair a staircase to the upstairs flat, because at the time there were some beds up there as well, and I agreed with his builder to repair this staircase, so I'm not paying you the rent, you're gonna pay for that staircase, which I didn't agree. So it got a bit messy, and we ended up going to court, you know, had to get a barrister and so on. But I didn't know his history until this started happening, and that's when Dad researched who he was, and he said, "You're not going to believe who this guy is," and he was a big property tycoon in Sussex. So I was like, oh my God, I'm dealing with, you know, and he went to prison because when he tried to hire a hitman to have somebody killed, it got out and the police sent an undercover police officer.
Okay.
Right, so he got caught and sent to prison. And in that time, when he did time, he apparently studied law and was reading up on law, so he was very good with words, and I felt threatened, but at the same time I wasn't going to back down. I thought, I've worked hard, why do you think I'm going to just give you this business without any? So
which I feel like you've massively instilled that into me and Luca.
Yeah, that's right. So I felt there was a bit of intimidation. I felt a bit frightened, but I certainly wasn't going to let him, you know. So my evidence was all, you know, against him, because basically I sent a surveyor in to check the staircase. One, he had a full repair or lease, so he didn't have a leg to stand on. And then secondly, I'd never agreed. And then the surveyor said that work of repairs £150 worth, not thousands of pounds worth, like you say. So already it was showing that he's a liar.
Yeah.
So we go to court. We actually don't make it to the courtroom, because I said to my solicitor, my barrister actually at the time, if we can get him out, I want him out. I don't want nothing to do with him. So it was back and forth, because basically before you go in the courtroom, you're in two separate rooms trying to negotiate before you walk in the courtroom. And then basically it turns out the builder who was saying I told about the staircase, one day, because I had a shop, obviously the other shop further up the road, and I was walking past one day and I said, "Oh, how's it going?" He said, "Well, we're doing some work, we're decorating." And this man was a very proud dad, started talking about his son, saying, "My son's a clerk for a barrister." So I said, "Oh, well, that's interesting, you know." So my solicitor, I've got this barrister, he's, you know, really good. He deals with landlord disputes and does brilliant. And then I said to my solicitor, "I know this is, you know, a long shot, but this builder, son, is a clerk for a barrister." And he said, "Marie, you're watching too many movies," and dismissed it. I went, okay. My evidence is, you know, a big pile of evidence goes on to the barrister, but goes to the clerk first, and then it turns out it is the son who works for the barrister. But anyway, by that time they had all my documents, so we said, let's go ahead with it, because they'd be breaking legally they can't divulge what is in that file. So anyway, we go to court, we agree a sum. Basically, he agrees on my terms and leaves the property. We go to walk out the rooms, and the man's standing there, and he comes over to me and he looks at me and he puts his hand out to shake my hand, and Dad's standing there. And I put my hand out and I go to shake his hand. And he says, we really didn't have to get to this point. And I said, we really did. And then I said goodbye and I walked out. And I remember Dad saying to me at the time, he said, Maria, I cannot tell you how proud I am of you. I felt in that moment, you know, and as scary as I was crumbling inside, I thought, no, I'm not going to be threatened. I'm not going to, you know, I haven't come this far.
Or there was a part of you that didn't want to get killed.
There was a part of me, yeah, you know, and obviously I was told that 6 months out of prison, police are not just going to dismiss someone who's tried to have someone killed. You know, there is that element that he probably was still keeping an eye. So I felt all right, you know, but when I first heard, I thought I'm going to get hit by a car or something. He's going to arrange for me to get run over. But no. But what I'm saying, it was an ordeal, but one I got through. I was proud of myself, Claudia.
Dad's had moments of not great times in his business too, like years and years and years ago. You've obviously gone through that and other things that have challenged you along the way as well that I know of. I've then come to you saying that I want to start a business. Luca has obviously also come to you at some point and said he wants to start a business. Were there no moments you and Dad wanted to be like, don't do that? There was no, I don't feel like you two gave any warning, like along the way of like what necessarily comes with it. Yeah, like all of this is going on in your business lives, but at no point did I ever feel like you brought that home?
No, we didn't. We didn't because...
But I feel like my stresses I really bring home. If I have a really bad day, my boyfriend gets the brunt of that, which is so bad, and I don't want it to be like that.
Dad and I, you know, sometimes we have taken it out on each other, maybe not in front of the kids.
Yeah, but as in like, no, I'm not saying I've never seen you have an argument in your life, but my point is that all of these stresses were going on in both of your businesses, and thank God you came out the other side and were both very successful. But for me and Luca, he might disagree with me, but I don't feel like you ever brought that home and scarred us where we didn't want to start our own businesses because we didn't experience any like trauma from all of the stuff you were going through. But equally, at that point, you didn't say, don't do it because of X, Y, Z that went on with us.
Yeah, because if you let fear in, it'll come in, you know. And I have no regrets with having my own business. So why would I try and put you and Luca off ever having your own business? And what you got to remember, you say you go home and you take it out. We came home and we had kids. That totally changed the vibe for us. You know, we come home to our beautiful children. You know, that was something completely, it would take it away from everything that happened in the day. Sometimes you can't help it. You bring some of the shit home. You can't help it. But I did used to try and leave things at work. I did try and do that because I was just happy to see my kids.
So you're saying that when we decide to have babies, I'll be less stressed?
I think so, yeah.
You'd think the opposite, that kids would be more stressful?
Your priorities change, Claudia. They change. Your children become, you know, honestly, as you get older, you realise, you think, one, your health is the most important thing. Your family is the most important thing. All those other things, all right, they're wonderful and lovely, but they're not the most important thing in life.
So, I mean, going back to how we weren't spoiled kids at all, because I feel like there's this misconception that if your parents don't come from anything, then your success is almost like voided. Even though you and Dad were successful, I don't feel like we were handed anything on a plate. And I think that was so valuable for us to then take with us. We weren't short for anything. We had all of the things that we needed. But like if we wanted something from the Argos catalogue, we'd have to wait till our birthday or Christmas to get that, or work for...
Just appreciate and valuing things.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, just for the sake of buying something, because even if you can afford it, it's not like that. It's teaching you values of life. We spoke to you about things when you got to the age where you could... But as a kid, do you remember when Dad said he fancied Sinead O'Connor?
No, it wasn't Sinead O'Connor, Shania Twain. That was the worst day of my life.
So imagine that. Imagine us telling you other things. You couldn't cope with that. You didn't sleep for it. Well, I didn't find out until later. For a long time. That I took you to child therapy at one point because you were having nightmares and you're not sleeping at night. And then you end up telling me
that
you're
was
older
horrendous.
age.
Yeah.
Dad said he fancied her as a youngster.
So when
he was going to run off with her.
We were watching TV and Shania Twain came on an advert and it was Shania Twain and Dad was like, oh, she's so... I don't know what word he used.
No,
she's so
said,
pretty.
I used to really fancy her.
Oh, I'd leave your mum for her.
No,
or it was something like that. It was. I promise you now.
Oh, it was
something. It was tongue in cheek, but it was something like that. And as a child, I was like, oh my God, is my
You
family
did
going to
say
break down? And then I kept having bad dreams about you and Dad breaking up.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
it was
right.
so
But that's what I mean.
traumatic.
You know, can you imagine?
I had to have dream catchers for ages.
You didn't tell us. We were trying to find
No,
out.
because
why.
do you know why I didn't tell you? It's because I'm so superstitious, and every birthday my wish would be, please can my dad not leave my mum for Shania Twain? Every birthday candle, when I knew if I'd ever told you that, then the wish would be broken.
Oh no.
And then he'd leave you for Shania Twain. So I never told you that until I got to about 16, 17 and stopped using my birthday wish as that.
Yeah, you worried. So why would, you know?
Yeah, but I think...
But it's also, I do feel shielding you from everything as a child isn't good. You know, you've got to see some...
Oh, yeah, of course. I don't feel like we were in a bubble.
Yeah, exactly. It's normal to feel a bit upset or grief or, you know, all these feelings is quite normal. It's sort of devaluating your own, to a kid going, well, you can't feel that, you know?
Yeah. I think it's just the point is that you just never made it feel impossible to start a business. Like it was just kind of like, go and do your thing, you'll make it work.
Well, let's face it.
And I
think convincing to have a good time, do you?
Well, no, but I think even though we had that comfort of knowing that if it all fell apart, we'd still have home and we'd still have you two. I think that was probably, and I know not everyone's fortunate enough to have that fallback, but I think that was really powerful.
Have each other.
And
not
that.
Even have to have each other.
Well, yeah. Away from the shops, fast forward, you've got a property portfolio. You then think, I don't want to be on my feet anymore doing the salon. Because even despite getting revenue from the rent of the flats, you don't give up hairdressing. You still stayed in the shop. You then get to, was it your 40th? Birthday.
When I went back to work after getting it back from this court thing, I said to you and Luca, I've got to touch on this, that I said to you both, I've got to go back to work. And I remember...
Because how long had you had just with us?
Just a few months. It wasn't really long.
Okay.
And I felt, because you grow up, you know, it wasn't easy just leaving you. It was hard. I used to feel terribly guilty going to work. I used to feel guilty. And I remember this time I said to both of you, I'm going to go back to work, you know, and I'm sorry. And you both said, we're so proud of you working. We're really proud of you, Mum. And you said, there was something that happened in a classroom. You were asked, a teacher said, whose mum's work? It was about there was a question about whose mother's work. And you put your hand up and you said, I was so proud to put my hand up. And it's funny because that changed a lot. When you told me that, it changed a lot for me. I let go of the guilt.
Yeah, but it's like I say, I know I have the memory of a goldfish, but I don't remember you never not being there.
Yeah, exactly.
Like even to this day, like my favourite thing in the whole wide world is like a family meal. I remember all the like every Sunday we'd always have family meals. Like that's what I remember. I don't remember you not being there.
But of an evening, one thing we did was always sit around the table.
Yeah,
didn't we?
That is something I would 100% instill when I have kids.
We did, and it was important. It was really important to us because I was brought up, you know, Nonna and Nonna. Nonna used to get home from work. My mum would go to work.
Yeah.
Nonna. So, but of an evening, my dad, no matter how many hours he's working, he'd come home and eat with us.
Yeah.
Evening. Because most of our conversations happen around the table.
Yeah,
together.
so true.
Disagreements.
Yeah.
Joy, everything happened around that table.
Fast forward in life, we're now obviously older. You turned 40 when you decided to step away from the salon.
I was 40.
I feel like I remember it was like your 40th birthday, or am I lying? I don't know, maybe.
I can't remember, but it was, it was in my 40s that I started to not love the job anymore. And I think with hairdressing, anything like that, as soon as you start to fall out of love, you can't do it. You have to love that job.
Otherwise someone's getting some bad haircuts.
Haircut, exactly. So I did it in a totally different way. I gave everybody a year's notice. But what I did, I made the shop smaller and
so you downscaled the shop and renovated the rest of the shop to a flat.
And I gave everyone a year's notice, the clients. I started talking about it for about a year. I said in a year's time, and it was just it felt right. It was done in a loving way. I decided once I finished I wanted to go and travel. So I did a lot of holidays. I travelled a lot. That was it. But I mean,
the reality of it was that you didn't actually retire, though.
No, but I did a bit of travelling, and I knew in my heart I could not do nothing. And travelling, you know, Dad's working, so he can't travel. So I went off on holiday a lot on my own. I did things with Dad. And then COVID hit as well, and I then went and helped in the fish market, which I'd never, ever... The staff was shocked when I stepped foot in that fish market. I had wellies on, waterproofs and a hairnet on, and they all went, what? And I thought, come on, I'm here to help, you know, and I helped Luca as well. Actually, and only then I could see, I know Dad works hard, but only then I could see how insane his job is. You know, he's got all phones going, he's got 30 odd staff all wanting to talk. It's insane. And, you know, I started not moaning about how you loaded the dishwasher and everything that you got after that.
Obviously you retired, went travelling for a bit, and then you decided to start post-COVID. Oh no, it was during COVID.
It was just
after COVID,
just
actually. Yeah, sorry.
I started the antique. Well, I didn't start it as a, you know, I thought, I want to do something. What do I want to do? You know, I'd love to be a DJ. You know, photography I like, and then antiques I love, and the vintage world. And not because of my dad. I'd go to antique fairs with my dad, and I loved it. And I thought, you know what? I want to do it. I don't know anything about it, you know, but I'm going to do it. How I started was I'd buy one piece, photograph it at home in our hallway, and then upload it on Instagram, you know. But I remember I really procrastinated about starting it because there was always a block, and it was fear. I didn't know what name to choose. I didn't know anything really about it, you know. Was I going to be good enough? And, you know, there was so many blocks. At the end I thought, what am I doing? Just do it, Marie, just do it, you know. And it is fake it to make it until you know. It's so funny because I remember talking to someone, and I was just a few months in, and they said, well, how long have you been doing it? I said, only about less than a year. And they said, oh, you've been doing it for about 20 years, you know. And it is, you know, if you're confident, just doing the best. And it grew much bigger than I ever expected.
So something that you wanted is like a
ITV drama series, or, you know, my furniture.
Yeah.
It grew to something bigger, and I've loved doing it. I just love it. It's quite addictive. I love it. But now I've got to the point where I've peaked where I want to peak without having to employ people and I never really got into it to do it full time. It did start off as a hobby, and it just grew, you know. I went from photographing at home to renting a little antique showroom in Lewes, which I've still got there, and then to getting a big warehouse, a 1,200 square foot warehouse, full of vintage and mainly mid-century vintage furniture. So it grew bigger, and I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but I am good at what I buy what I love.
Yeah.
And there's people out there that equally love it.
How do you think you've made everything you've touched profitable?
Believing in myself. Fear, when you let fear in.
You've said that.
Yeah. I know, but I do really highlight it because fear stops so many people doing things.
Yeah.
People go, oh, I'd love to do that. Well, why don't you do it? Keep your full-time job and just start doing it on the sideline. I've said that to people, just do it a little bit on the sideline. I think believing in yourself, you know, and putting yourself first. You've really got, you know, it's so easy to get completely immersed in business and forget who you are and forget your own well-being, you know, but it's not everything you touch just turns to gold. And I am competitive. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it good. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it. Simple as that.
In each podcast, I've been doing a segment called Things I Bish I Knew. What do you wish you could go back and tell yourself?
My younger self, believe in yourself, you are good enough. Because I think when I was younger, I think I was a rebel because I never believed I was good enough.
Would have you done anything differently?
I just didn't think I was good enough, and I thought, oh, I can't bother, I'm not doing it. I always think, I believe I could have studied more, even though it doesn't necessarily mean you need qualifications to do something.
Yeah.
But I just think it gives you that self-belief, you know, starting off from that foundation of schooling, you know, because I think sometimes it's comparing, isn't it? That comparing to that student next to me who's getting A stars, and I think, oh God, you know. I think I would just tell myself I'm good enough to try anything. I don't have regrets, Claudia. I really don't, because I think now I have the attitude, try it, rather than regret not doing it, you know, because as you know, I want to go into a new venture.
How you prioritise your relationship without letting your career slip?
Time out. Dad and I...
But you were working 7 days a week.
Yeah. When you were little, there's one thing, you would remember this, we would have the odd weekend away, we would go out for dinner, we actually made time out of the house, even if it was a walk with Dad on our own, away from the house and away from the kids, to remember why I fell in love with Dad. And every time we did that, we just fell back into love. Not that we fell out of love, but you remembered why you loved that person, why you want to stay with this person. And Dad and I, we love travelling, we love doing all these lovely things. Dad loves a holiday, doesn't he? He loves, you know, travelling. And when you were little, we would make sure we'd have a meal out. on our own, or we would, like I said, even if it's a walk to the park or along the beach, or we'd go to a hotel for one night and you'd stay with my mum and dad or either grandparents.
Yeah.
That is the most important, to make time in that relationship, because in a house when it's busy and it's mad, it's just chaos. Sometimes you look at the clock and you think it's 10 o'clock at night and we haven't even spoken about how we're feeling or what's gone on in our day. You know, life just gets in the way, doesn't it? That's what we did. And you remember, we did that. We had time out, away from the house, away from that everyday routine and the madness. And
Okay, should we wrap up?
how do you wrap up?
I don't know, because again, I feel like the wrap up is different with you. I thought I was going to cry and I didn't. Did you?
Yeah.
I thought I was going to sob.
No, I don't want. I thought I was.
I don't want to cry.
Actually, I don't want to cry. I thought I was going to cry because I thought, touching on, Nonna and that, but I felt quite empowered, and
I love that.
I actually thought I was going to get emotional.
Yeah, same.
Especially with them 2 feathers on the table that I'd spotted outside the door. I really did, but I felt, instead of crying, I feel empowered by you, because I am so proud of you, Claudia.
No, you're going to cry.
No, now stop. Stop. I am so proud of both my children.
I love you.
You're everything and more. So we must have done 1% right.
No, I need to stop now, because otherwise I'm going to stop crying. Thanks for listening to Bishness As Usual. If you enjoyed the episode, please make sure to follow, subscribe and leave a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes will drop every Monday, so until then, stay inspired and we'll get back down to Bishness next week.